Cheers and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren and today I am going to be watching a fat electrician video. This one is Old Age and Treachery, the unstoppable 77th Infantry Division. I'm looking forward to this. I like all the fat electrician videos. It's been a while since I've been able to do a long one, so I'm sorry that it's been a minute. I've been doing a bunch of the shorter ones, but I've got a minute today, so we're gonna do the longer video. And again, there's a lot of longer ones that I will continue to do. I am not giving up on them. I will be doing some longer content with the Fat Electricians videos. It's been complicated for a little while. So today, just because there's always someone I want to toast to in his drinks, so I've got with me, or in his videos, so I've got my drink. This is a espresso martini today. It is Kahlua, coffee, vodka, creme de cacao. It ain't playing. It is strong. But like I said, I always want, like, there's always someone to toast in these, and like, I've got whiskey, but I don't want to do a shot of Four Roses because Four Roses is good. So we're just going to drink the drink today. Again, I always like these. I'm really excited to learn about these old badass men. like, let's go. I don't even know what to say. I'm just really excited. So without further ado, let's begin.
A lot of you probably already know the name Desmond Doss, and even more of you would remember it if I reminded you that he was the conscientious objector
Andrew Garfield
that refused to carry a weapon into combat. Despite that, he saved 75 men at Hacksaw Ridge as a medic. But what almost none of you have heard of is the experimental unit that he was a part of.
Okay, no. Already I've heard of none of this, so we're gonna take a drink when Lauren is an idiot. Also, she hasn't seen very many war movies. Her brother was interested in them, which meant that she was not. That is how that worked. Took her many years to watch the third Star Wars movie. I feel like there's a lot of movies that I've kind of like missed out on because my brother liked them. And I went through a really long phase where if he was interested, I was like, it's horrible and stupid and for boys. So I didn't watch them. I got over it, but I also never went back and watched a lot of those movies.
Today we're talking about the 77th Infantry Division, aka the Old Bastards. Ladies and gentlemen,
Nice.
Whether you realize it or not, we've all been exposed to the concept that you should never underestimate the old guy because sometimes he just might be a complete badass. We see it everywhere. There's memes and commonly held sayings all over the internet like youth and
I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I'm not going to exploit for political versus my opponent's youth and experience. Ha, rude. Youth and talent are no match for old age and treachery. There's also the other side of that. Or it's like there was like a saying, it's like, the young have stronger legs, but the old know the road. And then the response is, yeah, but the young have Google Maps. And it's like, I will say that this is an interesting quote from Ronald Reagan as well. It's like, don't worry, I'm not going to exploit that they're an idiot and they're young. But at the same time, it's like considering where we are right now, where we almost had two septuagenarians, like, fighting it out, like crazy old people fighting it out for president. And now we have a younger, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, old age, they can be a badass, but it can also be a terrifying thought.
exuberance is no match for old age and treachery, or
also there's the whole, like, have you heard of the Gen X rise thing going on right now? It's very funny. All right, but I agree with a lot of the stuff too. Beware of an old man in a profession where men usually die young. Damn straight. That's very, very true.
beware an old man in a profession where young men die. And if that wasn't enough, in pop culture and TV, there are characters in pretty much every show and every movie that are the embodiment of this sentiment, and they are more often than not the fan favorite that everybody loves.
True. I will say, like, some of, like, the most badass, like, the people who are known for being badass are all old now, but, like, you know, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, like, Chuck Norris, like, it's like you Clint Eastwood, like, a lot of these people are they were badass when they were young, but they've remained badass. I feel like Clint Eastwood feels like he was born old, but that just might be because like I remember him from westerns. But like I don't know, like I feel like there's a lot of people who like, if you think of a badass, it is usually an old man that kind of pops into your head.
Nickelodeon, a kids channel, you see characters
Yeah, Iroh!
King Boomy.
Boomy!
You see characters like
Roshi.
Roshi. In more adult shows, you've got characters like Mike from Breaking Bad, Lloyd from Yellowstone, and Sir Barristan from Game of Thrones.
I loved him. They fucking robbed Sir Barristan in the show, by the way. He is not dead in the books, so he is not dead in my heart. I love that old man.
Characters like this are everywhere in pop culture, and they are catered to every age group because it is never too early to learn the simple concept of be careful because that old man just might whoop your fucking ass.
No,
and I
fuck
bring all
you.
this up because it raises one simple question. If old men really are such badasses and experience is truly such a valuable asset, what would happen if you made an entire army out of old guys? Well, we don't have to wonder because in World War II, America did just that, and the results speak for themselves, and we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Henson's Shaving. Okay,
Henson's
Shaving is a
Shaving.
family-owned machine shop that makes parts for the aerospace industry. There's literally parts on the Mars rover that these guys made, and one day they woke up and they're like, hey, we're just going to make the most precise safety razor on the market. And this is it. This is all they sell. It comes in aluminum or titanium. If you want to pay extra, it comes with a little stand. And then they also sell the razor blades, so you have a one-stop shop. Not because their razor blades are proprietary, because this thing will take any shaving razor blade on the market. You don't have to buy their proprietary cartridge. You don't have to sign up for their monthly delivery thing. No, you buy.
At the same time, it would make sense though to buy whatever shaver that they are selling to you. Like I think, because I mean, why would you want a cheap ass razor in your badass like handle thing?
This one time and then you can put any 5-cent razor in it and shave for the rest of your life.
But why would you want to do that?
Itself is
Use the good
fantastic,
one.
but more importantly, the company is awesome because every time a YouTuber does an ad like this, they get sent a little media packet full of talking points, what to say, what not to say, and so on. Now, I'm not supposed to disclose this, but the brief that I got for Henson's basically said there is no script, do whatever you want, we trust you. Also, in the first paragraph, they said this, quote, if for whatever reason you don't get a good shave with our product, please let us know. If we can't help you, then don't endorse us. We think we've made one of the very best razors in the world. If you disagree, we'd rather not ask you for a non-genuine endorsement. So the razor's great, and this is the type of company that you actually want to give your money to. I'm gonna have a link for them down below. Let's get back to the video.
There we go
Okay,
again.
here's the deal. I've been making pro-American history videos on the internet for about 2 years now, and without fail, every single time I make a video about America and World War II, I get this exact keyboard warrior in the comment section. Buh! America didn't win World War II. They showed up late and tried to take credit for it. Buh! Okay, look, on one hand, I want to give this a serious answer. There's no American that's saying America won World War II all by themselves. Nobody is saying that. It was a huge team effort by the big three, America, the UK, and the USSR, as well as a bunch of other countries that were occupied or close to being occupied. They all made humongous sacrifices to win World War II. It was a massive team effort. So when an American says America won World War II, they're simply saying the Allied forces won, America is part of the Allied forces, therefore America won. It is a factually correct statement, just like it would
It's our win. We did it.
also be a factually correct statement to say that the USSR and the UK also won World War II. On the other hand, if we're talking shit, I can do that too, because guess what? When it comes to World Wars, America's the MVP. I hate to break it to you, but let's just face facts here. If World War III breaks out tomorrow and we're picking teams by lining all the countries up on the wall like it's dodgeball in gym class, guess who's getting picked first? America. If you disagree with that, it's because you're being disingenuous.
That's
or
fair.
Fucking dumb. And the whole America showed up late to World War II thing, look, #1 seed in the tournament gets a bye. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Furthermore, it's not like World War II was on the verge of ending and America popped in at the last second so they could be on the winning team.
Yeah, they were still there for a few years.
Ended because America came off the fucking top rope with aircraft carriers, Sherman tanks, and atomic bombs. Sorry, I'm getting horribly sidetracked. I apologize. The point I'm trying to...
I feel like he's not wrong though. It's like, would the Allied forces have won if America hadn't popped in? Quite possibly. I know that like a lot of the Axis forces were getting kind of tired. But you know, that's why you bring in your relief pitcher, you know, like win it faster.
to get to is that there's a lot of people on the internet that like to say America showed up late to World War II, but the fact
They did.
is it's not like America had a choice. That was literally the only option, because in 1939, when World War II kicked off, America didn't really have a military to go fight with. Okay, let me break this down for you. 16 million Americans.
Just coming out of the Great Depression, too. Like, they were still in the Great Depression. Like, they were still, like... it's like, I feel like that was probably a factor.
Served in the military in World War II, and at its peak, the U.S. military had 12 million people actively serving in it. In 1939, when World War II started, America's military had 200,000 people in the Army and 100,000 people in the Navy.
That's fucking nothing. Jesus Christ.
America had the 19th largest military on the planet, and 18th was Portugal, which is approximately the size of Indiana, which is one of America's 50 states. And if that wasn't bad enough, not only was the military small, it also just wasn't very good at this point in time either. They were so underfunded that the American military only had 329 light tanks that were outdated and 1,800 aircraft that were also outdated. And if that wasn't bad enough, not only did they not have good equipment, and there wasn't very many of them, they didn't really know how to fight either, because America hadn't revisited its battle doctrine since World War I, meaning the only fight that America knew how to participate in was trench warfare, which is not what World War II was. So if America wants to have a meaningful impact in World War II, they're going to have to rebuild an entire military from the ground up, both physically and conceptually. So the American...
All right, I will say, didn't know that. That's wild. Especially considering now where we have like the biggest military, and we have so much money going into the military, more than like most of the rest of the world combined. Definitely the top three. Like we are crazy. We have so much military. Now I think we could probably pull back. That's my soapbox. I think that we should, we can still be the best by just a little bit, as Dash from The Incredibles would say. But we don't have to be the best by as much, maybe. We can put some more of that money into, making sure water is good for everybody in America. And we can maybe end some of the crazy construction on all of the highways by making sure that the infrastructure gets a little bit better. I'm just saying. That is my keyboard warrior stance of that. I understand why we need to continue to put money into the military. I understand that it is important. But I think we could funnel a few billion of that to some other things that are also important, because otherwise, eventually we're not going to have a country to freaking defend anymore.
The American government and the American military got to work on this right away in 1939 because they knew America was going to have to participate in this war whether the public wanted to or not. And hence, the American public wanted absolutely nothing to do with World War II from 1939 through 1941. At this point in time, the American public very much viewed World War II as a European conflict that America had no business getting involved with, and they wanted nothing to do with it. Despite that, the United States government started to institute a draft in October of 1940, forcing young men into the military to grow its military size, just in case. Fast forward about a year, December 7th, 1941, a day that was infamy. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, committing the cardinal sin of fucking with America's boats, essentially flipping the American public sentiment of we don't want to be involved to cowabunga.
Let's go!
On December 8th, 1941, the American government, Congress, has officially declared war on Japan. 3 days after that, December 11th, Hitler declares war on America, at which point all of America is pretty much like, I mean, you didn't touch the boats, but fuck it, you can get some too.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
In the days
is that from Dodgeball?
Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, not only have hundreds of thousands of young men volunteered to join the United States military, but the draft would ramp up as well. The Army was growing so much so fast that they were activating and standing up new divisions left and right, one after another. And by March of 1942, these new divisions that were being stood up were almost entirely comprised of draftees. They had some officers and some NCOs that were assigned to stand up the entire division, but aside from that, all of the new guys that were coming in were all untrained new recruits that were drafted. And
also, I do have to wonder really quick. Sorry, this is kind of going back to the America came in at the end and claimed victory. Because 1939, 1940, and then 1941. So it's like there was 3 years that America wasn't officially involved. But then there was I think we were technically declared war in 41. We were there in 42, 43, 44, and 45. So the fact we were, America was kind of there for, 43, 44, 45. We were there for half of it. 42, 40, right? So I think maybe people are thinking about World War I, where we came in the last year. And still lost quite a lot of soldiers. But, like, we came in the last year in the First World War, but in the second one, we were there for, like, half of it. So I just, 39, 40, 41, we weren't really. 42, 43, 44, and 45, we were. So it's like, anyway.
One of these first all-drafty divisions was the 77th Infantry Division. Now, I need you to understand how absolutely crazy this situation is. Standing up a new division is a humongous undertaking, okay? A military unit of that size, that's like 15,000 men. That's
shit, okay.
Breathing entity, okay? There's history, there's standard operating procedures, there's leadership, there's a way of doing things, and that way has probably been written in blood for years by the men that came before you, and you're just popping one up overnight.
Okay. Because that's interesting. That kind of feeds into a lot of the other stuff that he talks about a lot of the time, about how people don't like some of the men he talks about because they're doing something new and things are entrenched in tradition.
Crazy. Okay, let me explain this in a hypothetical so hopefully you can understand a little bit better, okay? Imagine that you showed up to work tomorrow. Let's say that you worked on an assembly line for Ford and you're building F-150s.
Yeah.
And you showed up to work and they gave you and a couple of your buddies that you work with keys and they're like, hey, drive across town. There's a big ass empty building. I need you to go ahead and start another manufacturing plant. There's no machines. Figure out the machines you need, figure out what order they need to go in, figure out the new fucking car that you're gonna build, and figure out all of this shit, how you're gonna pay everybody, taxes, everything. Figure all of it out. By the way, the new workforce is coming in next week. None of them are fucking trained. You have to go ahead and train them on all the shit that you haven't even figured out yourself.
No!
And if that wasn't hard
Fuck!
enough, the 77th Infantry Division was a guinea pig division. It was literally an experiment. You see, the high-ranking military and the government were concerned
That's
they didn't know
awful.
what it was going to take to win World War II, and they didn't know if they had enough young men, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. What if all of those young men got taken out and we needed to rely on the older generation of men to go fight this war?
Oh, fuck. Okay, so now I'm thinking about it in terms of working in a restaurant, and if they had told me, like, okay, you have to go start your own restaurant, again, no ovens, no materials there, but you have to figure out what kind of restaurant it's going to be. You have to figure out how to get the materials. And now you're getting a bunch of middle-aged people who have never worked in a restaurant before, and you have to teach them how to work in a restaurant. And I'm just thinking about that makes me want to die, because it's so obvious when someone has not worked in the service industry and you're dealing with them, when they've never worked like a retail job, when they've never worked with like a major customer facing job before, you can tell. Because they're always the people who are like, you're actively talking with somebody, like you're in the middle of you're writing down their order, or you're answering their question, and then you have someone out of the corner of your eye just like waving at you and beckoning you over, and it's like, I'm gonna murder you. It's like, I'm actively talking to like, can you not see me working? Anyway, and now I'm imagining that person who's like doing back, hey, come, I want a ranch. It's like, now I have to train them to work in a restaurant. Because those are the kinds of people, too, who, like, even if you're just like, excuse me, like, hold on. If you say that to them, they freak out and say that you were rude, and they write a negative review on Yelp. So now now you have to teach them how to handle that. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to die. That sounds awful.
They needed to know what these older men in their 30s and 40s and 50s would be capable of physically doing on the battlefield, and they needed to get that data now so they had it in the future should they need it. So when they
aren't men like
infantry division, they
at their best in the
all of
30s?
The old guys. Okay, the average age of a draftee.
Isn't that something I heard that once? Like 35 or whatever is like peak for men. Like that is when they're like could be at least potentially like at their strongest. It can go longer. I think about Joel from The Last of Us. That man's like 45 and he's... Anyway, point being, I feel like lumping 30-year-olds into old men. It's just when I've heard that 35 is like prime.
In 1942 was 23 years old. The average age of somebody in the 77th ID was 33 years old.
That's still not that old.
Average. The oldest new recruit I could find in the 77th Infantry Division was 53 years old.
Oh shit, that's kind of old.
Veteran. And some of you are probably
that's older.
53 is pretty old, but 33 isn't that old at all. Why are you making a big deal about this? Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
As far as joining
I'm not even 33 yet, but I'm still saying that's not old.
The military at the age of 33, that's ancient. That's
I guess
unheard of. I mean,
you know what?
You can join the military
I
at
guess
17 years old, be done, and have 20 years in service with a full pension at 37, 38 years old, and these guys are joining at 33. I mean,
you know what? That's fair. And also going back to my restaurant thing, like trying to teach a 30-year-old who's never been in food service before, I have had to do that, and it sucks to teach someone who's like never worked food service at that age, food service, like, it is not easy.
In AIT, the oldest guy we had was my buddy Flores. He was 28 years old, and everybody called him Gray Bush the Wise. So the point I'm trying to get at
That's so good.
join the military that was fine, but also, it's a good kind of weird because every person that's been in the military ever, if you came up to them and asked them, hey, if you had to go off to war and you could either go with a platoon of 18-year-old kids or a platoon of 30-year-old men.
30-year-olds, 100%, 100%. Yes, they are.
100% of the time. Because
Who wants to deal with teenagers?
20-year-old new recruits are coming in for training. Half the battle is having the Army, the drill instructors, come in and teach these kids all the life lessons that mommy and daddy never got around to while they were growing up as kids. They don't have to do that with a bunch of 30-year-old men. These guys have been out in the real world for 15 years,
right?
Getting their asses whooped by life and eating shit sandwiches.
Good.
They're already with
Not fucking cocky teenagers. Teenagers,
so
man.
ID shows up to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training. That's 16 weeks and then another 12 weeks for their advanced training, which for most of them is just going to be infantry. And they absolutely crush it. They show up and there's very little like disciplinary or life lessons being handed out by the drill sergeants because, well, they're older than most of the drill sergeants.
Ouch.
It's literally a bunch of middle-aged men
I hurt
showing
myself.
up being like, okay, I'm here. Show me what I got to do to not die. And then whenever somebody was being an asshole, they would police themselves. Like one of the new recruits,
Okay.
Dick, all the other new recruits would handle that issue internally before it even got to the drill sergeants because they wanted everybody squared away.
So opposite of what I was saying with my experience trying to teach older people how to be a food service representative. Be like, you know, maybe people today just suck.
Fast forward 2 months, they are on week 8 out of the 16 for basic training, and they are head and shoulders above all the other new training divisions. They are the best division they have. They are so good that when Winston Churchill came over from England halfway through their basic training, they were the unit that was selected to do a parade for Winston Churchill to show off
Dang.
how fast the American Army was going to be.
Awesome. Good for them.
Say about it. Quote, the faces of the men gave me the greatest and everlasting memory of the day. I have never been more impressed than I was with the bearing of the men whom I saw. The
Dang.
demonstrative, therefore grim determination of the newly drafted bodies bodes ill for our enemy.
That's so British.
The experimental guinea pig unit of old guys is absolutely crushing it. They go on, they finish basic training. I don't have the exact stats, but it is documented that a disproportionately high amount of all of the 77th Infantry qualified as expert with the M1 Grand right out of basic training. From there, they go and they do their 12 weeks of advanced
Good for
training,
them.
and they do a great job at that too. At this point, upper military is kind of looking at these guys like, okay, well, this is actually kind of working. Let's see what these old guys can really do. So they send them down to Louisiana for 8 weeks, and they're going to do a war game, the 77th ID going up against another new division that just got stood up, full of 23-year-olds. Literally, the old guys versus the new guys, youth and exuberance versus old age and treachery. We're going to have a legit war game.
Old guys win. Easy
And when I tell
peasy.
you the 77th ID whooped that other division's fucking ass, it is a complete understatement.
Oh my god, I almost died. I almost died. That was so scary.
Okay, no,
What's that from? A lot of the times I know what movies he's pulling from. I want to know what that one is. That sounds hilarious. But I'm like thinking about the 20-somethings that I know, and I'm like thinking about the 30-somethings that I know, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, 20-somethings. Y'all are babies. Babies.
at this point, it's winter in Louisiana. It's going to be cold at night, especially considering they're not allowed to have tents and they're not allowed to have fires.
And again, the only reason that I know about I know a bunch of 20-somethings is because I've got family who are in that sort of age demographic. And so I've known people for a while. And so I'm like, but knowing them, I'm like, oh, y'all. Yeah, we'd destroy you. Gen X rise! I'm not Gen X. It's fine. Like, going back to that thing again, which is the stupidest thing in the entire world. It's so dumb. Gen X rise! This is not supposed to be a Gen X bashing video, but if y'all are a part of that, y'all need to relax.
Statement.
Oh my god, I almost died. I almost died. That was so scary.
Okay, now at this point, it's winter in Louisiana. It's going to be cold at night, especially considering
I do want to know what
they're
that
not allowed
movie's
to have
from.
tents and they're not allowed to have fires. They're just out there sleeping on the ground for
That
2
sucks.
months doing this war game, going force against force. So, naturally, the 77th ID wants to play the mental warfare game and ruin it right out of the gate for these young kids. So, bearing in mind that it's winter and everybody's going to be cold at night, the 77th launches a bunch of very aggressive ambush attacks, basically pinning the other force between them and a river, and they just keep advancing closer and closer. The other division is forced to cross the river on foot, getting all of their shit completely soaked.
Mean.
And some of you are probably like, oh, they got a little bit wet. Who cares? Trust me, if you were living outside for 2 months and every possession that you owned to your name was on your back in a backpack and you weren't allowed to have a tent or fire to dry your clothes and all your shit just got soaked, you would care. Okay, there's nothing worse than walking around for 16 hours holding a gun with a heavy backpack on, and the only comfort you get at the end of the day is some dehydrated food and the opportunity to change out your wet socks. For
Still
more
dehydrated?
Okay, whether you believe me or not, I just need you to trust me. It's going to take a mental toll on some 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. Believe me.
I bet. And like, look, I could never ever be in the military. I don't have the fortitude for it. Even if I was like a fan of some of the stuff they've been doing recently. But like, I just, even back then when I was like, there's no way. There's no way. One, I have no willpower. So there's that. Two, I'm weak as fuck. I do have nothing but respect for people who can make it through boot camp even. I'm like, kudos to you. Could never be me. Sometimes I wish it could be me. It could never be me.
It only gets like 1,000 times worse. I keep reiterating this, but
this sounds awful.
Middle-aged men, okay? These are dudes that are working construction jobs in the 1940s before OSHA was around. Walking
That's true.
around on I-beams with no harnesses, eating lunch, and nobody gives a shit. These dudes that were working in offices before they had an HR department. Okay, these guys are bringing so
they were
workplace
rude to
pranks
women?
and tomfoolery to the table. These 20-year-olds aren't going to know what hit them. So one of the big things
Not
the
even close,
77
though.
does is they start pretending to be in this other division at night. Like they'll roll up at night. There's like one guy left awake, pulling guard duty, whatever. They'll roll up to him and be like, hey, Commander so-and-so, whatever the fuck, said I need to take this Jeep and go take it over to HQ, blah, blah, blah. And he's, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever, man. He like nods back off asleep while he's supposed to be on guard. 77th ID guy just steals their Jeep. I mean, strategically transfers it to a different location. Like,
Yes!
they're stealing all their vehicles, they're stealing all their equipment. And then, usually when you're doing military stuff, you want to sever enemies' communications so they can't communicate at all. Not the 77th ID. No, we've got fucking Jimmy who worked for the phone company for 10 years. We're going to find the enemy communication lines, we're going to tap into them, and then we're just going to start feeding them bad intel to make complete fucking chaos behind enemy lines. And then all the
Yes!
We're going to gather around the radio at night, and we're all going to listen to the higher-ups in their chain of command complain about how poorly they're performing. At the conclusion of this war game,
Amazing.
the 77th ID has just completely outclassed this other division full of young men, and it really starts raising some eyebrows because now people really...
Well, it's like people forget that young people are dumb. Like, some people can get away with it, like, by being the oldest in a family kind of thing, because if you are the eldest, you do have to grow up a little bit faster than, say, your younger siblings do, or, like, your youngest especially. But, like, it's like, I mean, the balls to just kind of walk up to someone and be like, yo, I was told by command to do XYZ, and then just, like, assume it, like, and the fact that it worked, and the fact that it worked multiple times hurts. I'm like, y'all... But again, hearing stories and stuff from people who are like currently in college or like just barely out of college, it's like, yep, that does track. Young people are not as cynical as they used to be.
We want to know what these old guys are physically capable of doing. And
Camp Hider.
And kind of fun to not fun at all for the 77th ID because the real experiments are about to begin. They send the entire 77th to a place called Camp Hider. It's about 100 miles outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
At least they have
in
tents.
the middle of the desert. So they show up to Camp Hider. It's literally just the desert with a couple of tents. Not even enough tents for the entire division. They have to go and dig their own wells to find their own water. And then because they didn't have enough tents, they're out there literally building mud huts to live in. So
Like I said, I could never.
building an army base from scratch, the army comes along and they're like, hey, we want to know how far a normal dude can march in the desert in 100-degree heat if we only give him 1 quart of water. So here's what you guys are going to do. We're going to force you to march, and you're just going to keep marching until a certain number of you pass out. That way, we'll have a really good idea of how far a single dude can go on 1 quart of water. So this is already borderline cruel and unusual.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there, because after they figure out how far a guy can go on a single quart of water, they decide that they're going to start having 6-day exercises where they have the second lieutenant, the lowest ranking officer that presumably knows the least, guide a platoon of men through the desert for 6 days straight. And if they want to be able to get their next day's supply of water and food, they have to be in the right place at the right time at the end of the day. Otherwise, just don't get the food and water.
You thirsty, Stanley?
Okay, they're literally doing some Hunger Games shit with their own troops.
All right, that was Holes, by the way. And if you haven't seen it, watch it. If you haven't read the book, you should, but you can also watch the movie. It's one of those few occasions where, like, the movie and the book are almost word for word identical. It's amazing.
For those of you that don't know, it's literally a running joke in the military that lieutenants suck at land navigation and always get lost. There's literally men
Oh, no, is it?
exposure and dehydration during this period at Camp Hyder from the 77th Infantry Division.
Holy shit, they're killing their people before they even go into the...
Is out in the middle of the desert having experiments run on them. And after
America.
the 6-month period came to an end and they...
Stop killing your men in base camp! Wait until they go to where they're supposed to go. Crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense. They should have, like, at least in the Survivor or whatever, the crew was there, and if people actually get into danger, they can give them water.
They got orders saying they were going to move on to some other type of training. They decided that in true military fashion, they were going to put this behind them by utilizing a dark sense of humor. The joke was
of course,
the desert was just as shitty as actually going to war, so they came up with their own medal, the Hyder Campaign Medal, to commemorate their time in the
Good for them.
They would all wear on their uniforms as a joke. The ribbon of the medal was made out of a piece of sandpaper, and the medal itself was a broken thermometer.
Amazing.
Decided that they were not going to officially recognize the Hyder Campaign Medal. Regardless,
Losers.
the entire unit is now being shipped back over to Pennsylvania, where they are going to have 1 month of advanced rifle marksmanship training.
I love it.
That most of them already qualified as expert. So they go, they do that, they get even better at shooting than they already were, and then after that, the Army comes out and they're like, hey, I've got this new sub-zero temperature sleeping bag that I want to have tested, so we're going to take you guys, our guinea pig division, we're going to send you over to West Virginia, have you go up in the mountains with this new sleeping bag, no tents, no fires, I just want you to live there for a month, hang out, freezing your ass off, and just sleep in these sleeping bags at night, and if you guys survive, we'll know they work. Okay, good, see you in a month.
Should I keep going? Why are you the way that you are?
So they do that.
Right? Good question.
Climb back down from the mountain, and the Army's like, hey, guess what? It's early 1944. We've decided that we don't need you guys for D-Day. You're not going to be going over to the European theater. We're actually going to send you over to the Pacific to help out the Marine Corps. So, next step of your training, you're going to head over to Virginia, and you guys are going to train for a month doing amphibious landings in winter in the Atlantic Ocean. But good news, you're already cold, so have fun. So they go, they do that, they crush it, just like everything else they do. Now they're...
Are they ever gonna see combat? Like, he said 1944 already. Like, how long have their training has been going on for a long time.
Headed off to Hawaii, where they're going to go through jungle warfare training for 6 weeks. Now, this is probably the most important training the 77th is going to get, considering that they're going into war in the Pacific Theater up against the Japanese in a jungle environment, and the Japanese are presumably already masters of their own environment. And pretty much everybody in the 77th is hyper aware of this, and it makes them take this chunk of training that much more serious. And one of the things that they notice is when they show up to jungle warfare school, there's the archway that they walk through. It says jungle warfare school, and it's got the tagline below it in quotes. It says, if they don't stink, stick them, which is obviously referring to what you're supposed to do with your bayonet if you come across an enemy's corpse that isn't decomposing, because at this point in time, it was highly likely that that person wasn't actually dead. They were pretending to be dead or hurt so that they could ambush you. And I believe that's one of the big lessons that the 77th took to heart from this period of training for reasons that we're going to find out in a little bit.
Okay. The old
So they
bastards.
finish jungle warfare school, and that's it. They're going off to war in the Pacific
Finally.
Theater.
Took them a
Over
while.
2 years of training.
That's
in
crazy.
multiple different climates, in multiple different terrains, all over the United States, spanning over the course of 2 years. This unit that is now, on average, 35 years old, is headed to war. So, July 1944.
And presumably has more training than, like, anybody else. Like, Can you tell me, did anybody else train that long? Like, where people just went straight over, I thought.
Up in the Marine Corps with the Mariana Islands campaign. This is a Marine Corps operation. They are running the show, and the man in charge is the Marine Corps General Holland Howling Mad Smith. Has not been very impressed with the Army's performance so far, helping him with the first island in the Mariana Islands campaign, Saipan. During the Battle of Saipan, General Smith was so unimpressed with the 27th ID's performance that he actually had their general relieved of command and had a Marine Corps general placed in charge of an Army division. So he's already not thinking very highly of the Army's capabilities, and when he finds out that he is being reinforced with the 77th ID, a guinea pig unit that is comprised mostly of middle-aged men, he's not very happy about it. So they're getting ready to invade Guam, and General Smith's plan is to not send in the 77th Infantry Division as a singular fighting unit. He's going to split them up and basically use them for reinforcements. Like, if this unit over there lost a platoon, he's just going to take a platoon from the 77th, give it to those guys over there, and he's basically going to disband and piecemeal out the entire division, is his plan. And that's exactly what happens. For the amphibious landing on Guam, they take some of the 77th ID platoons, they give them out to some of the Marine Corps units, some of the other Army divisions, and they send them into battle. A couple days later, General Smith, wondering how the old guys are doing, writes out to his commanders like, hey, how are these old guys performing? Can we use more of them? What's the deal? And to General Smith's surprise, according to all of his leaders in the field, these old dudes can throw down. They're absolutely awesome.
They're ready to go.
Went so far as to say, and I quote, "There is no doubt in our minds that the 77th were good people to have alongside in a fight. As a result, we started referring to them as the 77th Marine Division."
Dang.
I need you guys to really appreciate what just got said.
Holy shit, the Marines adopted people from the Army. Holy shit.
Okay, the Marine Corps, I love them, but they're not good at a whole lot. Really, if I were the commander-in-chief, I wouldn't call up the Marine Corps unless I wanted something dead, broken, or pregnant. That's really where they should be. It's their wheelhouse. You wanna know what the Marines aren't good at? Giving compliments to other people. They're not about it, okay? So for the Marine Corps to look over at the 77th ID guys, a bunch of middle-aged Army dudes killing people in battle, and go, "You're one of us." That's the best compliment the Marines
That's
can
amazing.
give, okay, it's a huge deal. This is the equivalent of the Jedi Council giving you a seat on the council and giving you
Good
the
job,
rank of
77th.
master. This is unprecedented.
Allow this appointment lightly. The council does not.
You're on this council. We grant you the rank of master.
What?
Take a seat, Master Skywalker.
What?
So when General Howard
What?
Smith reads this, he's like, damn, okay, well, if one of my battalion commanders thinks that these are Marines, I'm going to treat them like Marines. I'm not piecing out the 77th Infantry Division one platoon at a time anymore. I'm going to send in the entire division on the Marines' right flank. So pretty much immediately, the entire 77th Infantry Division is sent in, and they make an amphibious landing on the beach on the Marines' right flank. 15,000 middle-aged men from the East Coast rolling up in amphibious tractors.
East Coast represent.
M1 Grands and Tommy guns ready to fuck shit up. This is the metaphorical equivalent of dad getting home from work. The Japanese just don't know it yet. And this amphibious landing and their movement up the beach and into battle was absolutely textbook. It was the epitome of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It was the least chaotic amphibious landing anybody had ever seen. And as all this is going on, the Navy and some seagoing Marines are watching this amphibious landing take place, and a seagoing Marine famously says, "Would you look at those old bastards go," officially christening them with their new nickname, the Old Bastard.
Good for
Now, the
yay.
rages on for about 2 more weeks until the island is secured on August 10th, 1944. And at the conclusion of this battle, it becomes clear to absolutely everyone, including General Howling Mad Smith, that his battalion commander was correct about the 77th Infantry Division. Because over the past 2 weeks of the Battle of Guam, the Old Bastards have racked up 2,741 confirmed kills and sustained only 248 in return.
Fucking hell.
That is a ratio of 11-to-1 going up against an enemy that has home field advantage.
Crazy.
And the luxury of playing defense from fortified machine gun positions, which is absolutely insane. And with a performance like that, their new monikers of the Old Bastards and the 77th Marines are pretty much set in stone, with even General Holland Howling Mad Smith himself referring to them as such. Because of
Sorry. Sorry. I just want to give Nick kudos for that particular title card. That's so good. Yay. Sorry. I've appreciated his title cards as of late. I know that I've seen some more recent videos before this one, but like, I do appreciate it, and I really, really liked that one.
Rest and relaxation in New Caledonia, so they hop in the boats and head there immediately. They get about halfway there, and then the big green weenie strikes. Change of plans, no more R&R. We're going to turn the boats around and head straight over to the Philippines, because in Leyte, MacArthur has 4 divisions, and they are completely stalled out, and they need the old bastards' help. Now,
Yeah, they do.
the government has pretty much come out and said that they are going to make the Battle of Leyte a decisive battle for this war, and for that reason, they are throwing all the resources and manpower they have to win this battle against America and not lose this island. And up until this point, they're doing a great job. And then the 77th showed up. They show up to Leyte Thanksgiving Day 1944 with the energy of dad didn't get to take his nap and now it's gonna be fucking everybody's problem. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Version of what's going on here. The Americans have one half.
Not that I really know much about that, honestly. My dad was super chill. He's a chill dude. My mom probably could have dealt with some more naps. She probably could have had some more of them. But like my dad was usually very just like easygoing. Just a chill guy. I still understand I get what he's saying. But
the Japanese have the other. The Americans are getting resupplied on their back end, and the Japanese are getting resupplied on their back end from a place called Ormoc Bay. So the 77th Infantry is like, that's fine. Hear me out. We'll hop in the boats, we'll drive around Leyte, make an amphibious landing, and we'll take over Ormoc Bay.
Okay.
Supplies, game over, we win.
There's
To
a
which the
Valencia?
chain of command is like, that's absolutely crazy. You're going to be outnumbered 3-1, and we're not going to be able to get you any more supplies. To which the 77th is like, that's fine. We'll just bring some supplies with us, and then we'll steal all the enemy shit. And as far as
because they know how fucking long they can last with a quart of water and like no food.
3-1, we've been hanging out with the Marines this entire time.
We're good.
And if they've taught us anything, that's just a target-rich environment. Let's fast forward a couple
Amazing.
days, December 7th, the 77th ID makes an amphibious landing in Ormoc Bay. They catch the Japanese completely off guard, take over the entire thing, get their entire division into the bay in 35 minutes. Then they start bringing in artillery
Wow.
and M10 tank destroyers. So they get everything squared away. They establish
Holy
a
shit.
perimeter, also known as a beachhead. Then, first thing tomorrow, bright and early, they're going to start kicking ass, right? Right, everything's great. Couple hours later, guess who shows up? A Japanese landing ship full of Japanese troops, not having gotten the memo that America runs Ormoc Bay now. So the old bastards, under the cover of night, aim all of the artillery and the M10 tank destroyer at this ship as it gets closer and closer, getting ready to offload its barges full of troops and more supplies. The ship gets as close as it's going to get, it sends out its first barge, and the old bastards just wait patiently as the barge gets closer and closer, and as it gets within 50 feet of them, they open fire with the 50 caliber machine guns, pretty much sinking it immediately, as the man on top of the M10 tank destroyer yells out, "Get some flares in the air so I can hit these sons of bitches." As the flares get shot up, the enemy ship is illuminated as the artillery and the M10 open fire on it, sinking it in a matter of minutes. According
Wow.
to the 77th ID's unit historian, this is believed to be the only time in World War II history where an infantry unit has successfully sunk an enemy naval vessel. So there are
Wow.
and what happens next is described by an observer from the War Department as a divisional epic. Over the course of the next 8 weeks, the 77th goes on an absolute rampage, taking over 3 cities, an airfield, and securing 43 miles of main supply chain roads, okay? It's not a big island. There's not that many roads. They've basically taken over all of them. And
That's
the entire
crazy.
time they're doing this, they are acquiring enemy supplies, everything from food to vehicles.
They're like, we got this. We'll take care of it ourselves. We'll bring around and take what we find. I love it. Just use it.
Anything
Amazing.
they don't use, they destroy. And they're not just out there stealing all the enemy shit. They're out there giving out death certificates like they're Oprah Winfrey giving out cars. During this period, they are credited with 19,456 confirmed kills. In return, they suffered 543 Americans killed in action. That's a lot. I'm not trying to diminish that in any way, but it needs to be said that that is a 36-to-1 ratio.
That's crazy.
19,000 to 500 is an ass whooping and a half, and this would be studied at Fort Benning by the Advanced Officers Training Program for the next 40 years on how to conduct a clinical textbook level ass whooping. This
Amazing.
rampage would bring an end to the Battle of Leyte, with America securing the island, and the 77th would immediately be shipped over to begin preparations for the Battle of Okinawa.
Oh.
So they get to the staging area for the Battle of Okinawa, at which point they are informed that there is a small island chain known as the Karamaretto Islands. It is 15 miles off the coast of Okinawa, and the chain of command believes that they are going to be of strategic importance, and the 77th has to go clear them out. Now, the Karamaretto Islands is made up of 4 main islands, and the old bastards decide that they're going to take all 4 of them at once because apparently they're in a hurry. So that's what they do.
Okay.
Amphibious landing on all 4 islands at the exact same time. Some of the islands they take over with 0 resistance whatsoever, and the other islands they face very, very little resistance. And for a second, it was so easy that they were kind of thinking maybe they just wasted a bunch of time and resources.
Read this? Yeah, right?
On further investigation, what they found was a fleet of 360 hastily made boats that were filled to the brim with explosives that the Japanese were going to use in a kamikaze-style attack, but instead of planes, they were going to be driving explosive boats directly into American ships during the main invasion of Okinawa. So being able to prevent the enemy from using these weapons during the invasion of Okinawa made this entire mission completely worth it.
Yeah, for real. It was a quick chapter, but Jesus Christ.
1945, Easter Sunday, the Battle of Okinawa begins. It is 2 Marine divisions and 4 Army divisions making the initial landing, and the 77th is not one of them. They are being held back in reserve. And just to be clear, they're not being held in reserve because the chain of command thinks that they're the second string backup guys. They're being held in reserve because they have the reputation of being the problem solvers, and they want to save the 77th until they diagnose where the real problem's at, and they're going to send the 77th in then.
See, like I said, they're the relief pitcher. Like, you send them in to win the fucking game. Like, you don't put them in right away. You see what's going to happen. But you have somebody who is a clincher for you.
Pretty much immediately after the invasion of Okinawa, it becomes very clear to the chain of command that they missed a nearby airfield. There is a small island neighboring Okinawa known as Lishima, and on that island there is a Japanese airfield, and that airfield needs to go away. Problem is, that airfield is being guarded by 5,000 Japanese soldiers that are very well dug in, and they are not about to give up without a fight. So, they send in the 77th. The old bastards make quick work of it, securing the entire island of Lishima in 6 days, with none of the Japanese willing to surrender. Virtually all of them were killed in combat, approximately 5,000 enemy soldiers, with the 77th losing 258 men in return. And while the old bastards are securing Lishima, the Battle of Okinawa is still raging.
That was so sad. I don't know. That's gonna get me. Look at that.
Japanese
blah, blah, blah.
Virtually all of them were killed in combat, approximately 5,000 enemy soldiers, with the 77th.
At this spot, the 77th Infantry Division lost a buddy. I want to learn about Ernie Pyle, because I'm going to cry about him right now. They cared enough about this dude to, like, make a sign. Who's Ernie? That's so sweet. God damn it. Why am I crying over this man? This was supposed to just be like a quick, like, gloss over thing, I know, but like, oh my God. Whoever Ernie Pyle was, his, like, they cared enough to make a sign and commemorate him. And these are supposed to be these, like, you know, badass, battle-hardened, like, old-timers or whatever. That's... Fuck. Yo, Nick. You can't make me cry like that. That's not fair. I'm like... Ugh. I'm gonna ruin my makeup. I spent like a whole 20 minutes on it.
Losing 258 men in return. And while the old bastards are securing Lishima, the Battle of Okinawa is still raging on. It is one of the bloodiest, most hard-fought battles in American history. The island is being guarded by over 100,000 Japanese soldiers, with hundreds of heavy artillery pieces, thousands of mortar positions, and fortified machine gun positions. They have the high ground and they have underground tunnel networks. This entire battle is a fucking meat grinder. The entire island of Okinawa is an enormous problem, and nobody is having a good time, but one of the most problematic areas is a 100-foot high cliff face where the 96th Infantry Division has been absolutely shredded. This place is known as the Escarpment, or as it would later become known as Hacksaw Ridge. The old bastards are being sent...
Should I watch that movie? Let me know if I should watch it. I mean, I watched Saving Private Ryan, and that movie fucking wrecked me. Some of that's on the I don't remember where that is. That might be on this channel somewhere, but there is a bartender watches Saving Private Ryan out there. It was the first movie I ever reacted to on the channel. There are things that I would have done differently. There are things I would have done differently, and I would do differently with Hacksaw Ridge, but I was still learning. when I watched Saving Private Ryan, I had been doing reactions for less than a month. Like, I was brand fucking new to it. So, again, not things that there are certain things that I'm like, that's cringy, I shouldn't have did it, but anyway. Should I watch Hacksaw Ridge? Should I post it somewhere?
And to do what the 96th Infantry Division couldn't pull off. As they show up, they send 2 battalions up the 100-foot-high cliff face to engage the enemy. The Japanese drove both battalions back, forcing all of them to retreat. All of them except for one. One of the youngest old bastards, a 26-year-old medic by the name of Desmond Doss, who was unique in that he refused to carry a weapon into battle because he was a conscientious objector that didn't want to hurt anybody. He only wanted to save people. He stayed up top while everybody else retreated, and while evading the enemy, he managed to go around and find wounded Americans and begin lowering them down the cliff face all through the remainder of that day and all through the night. By the next morning, he had single-handedly lowered 75 men down a 100-foot cliff face, saving all of them. The next would attack again, this time sending up 1 battalion to engage the enemy and the other battalion out and around the side to flank them. During this battle, Desmond Doss would become mortally wounded by grenade shrapnel and sniper fire.
Okay, well, I know what happens in it then.
To insist that the other medics and litter bearers continue to save other men rather than himself. The old bastards would finally take the ridge, killing over 3,500 Japanese soldiers and losing over 600 men of their own, but amongst them was not Desmond Doss. The men of the 77th got Doss evacuated in time. He would survive and eventually be awarded the Medal of Honor.
I thought that being mortally wounded meant you died. Or maybe it is mortal wound just a wound that could be fatal. It's like a serious wound that, like, if you don't get help, you'll definitely die. But if you get, okay. They said mortally wounded. I definitely thought he was going to die. That means I can watch Hacksaw Ridge with, like, a little bit more, hope than otherwise.
His actions at Hacksaw Ridge. But as his journey in World War II came to an end, the old bastards still had work to do.
Yeah, they did. 1 inch at a time.
The 77th is going to be sent to capture Shiri Castle, but in order to do that, they have to punch through the Shiri line, which is essentially a natural wall of hills and cliffs, and on top of them is 50,000 Japanese soldiers manning fortified machine gun positions with overlapping fields of fire. At this point, almost all of the American forces are stopped in their tracks somewhere along this line. 2 Marine divisions and another Army division, both stuck, unable to penetrate through. The spot where the 77th have to break through to get to Shiri Castle is approximately half a mile wide and 2 miles in length. It takes them 32 days of constant fighting to clear that 2 miles. During those 32 days and in that single plot of land, the Japanese forces suffered 14,000 men killed in action. All of the American divisions managed to break through the Shiri line around the same time, and the Battle of Okinawa would rage on for a little bit longer, but the Shiri line breaking was the last major defensive maneuver that the Japanese were able to do. Everything after that was small-scale skirmishes, and this would rapidly bring about an end to the Battle of Okinawa. After Okinawa had been secured, the 77th would receive word that they are to be shipped back to the Philippines, where they are going to be retooled, refitted, and receive a bunch of new guys to replace the men that they had lost, and they are going to be the only combat unit that was present in the Battle of Okinawa that is also to partake in the first wave of the invasion of mainland Japan. Which is probably the shittiest compliment imaginable. Hey,
yeah, that sucks.
Great job that you get to do it again. Luckily, after the Philippine island of Cebu, the 77th ID would receive word that America had utilized a new type of weapon by dropping an atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, forcing the Japanese to surrender.
Okay,
and
so they got
have to go and invade the mainland of Japan.
Okay,
this is terrific news, but it left just one thing the 77th ID had to do before they could finally go back home. You see, all throughout the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and the rest of the Pacific, there were still Japanese military members all over the place, scattered pretty much everywhere. Many of these groups of Japanese soldiers would refuse to surrender for months, or in some cases, even years or decades.
Yep, there was that one guy who, like, lived and didn't surrender for, like, 60 years or something, 70 years.
Refusing to believe that the Japanese Empire would ever surrender. And in the case of Cebu, where the 77th currently were, up in the mountains, there were approximately 5,500 Japanese soldiers. Fortunately, they were willing to surrender because they got orders directly from the Emperor. Unfortunately, they were willing to surrender to literally anybody except for the old bastards. Bear in mind, we're back in the Philippines. These Japanese soldiers hiding up in the mountains in Cebu are the remnants of what was left after the Battle of Leyte, when the 77th went on a 2-month-long rampage, destroying everything. Now, to be fair, we don't know for sure why these guys were willing to surrender to literally anybody except for the old bastards. Maybe it was because they remembered a bunch of middle-aged men with a blue Statue of Liberty patch on their shoulder whooping their ass, and they just didn't want to surrender to them, or I have an alternative theory. You see, along this entire journey, the 77th has not only gained a reputation for being extremely effective in combat, but they've also gained a reputation for kind of sort of not really taking a whole lot of prisoners compared to everybody else. Now, bear in mind, this is the Imperial Japanese. Not many of these guys got taken as prisoner because they would rather die in combat than lose their honor by surrendering. Despite that, out of all the POWs that were taken, the 77th somehow managed to take on the least. You know what? Let me just read you guys the stats and you can come to your own conclusions. For all of the Pacific Theater across all branches of the US military, approximately 50,000 Japanese POWs were taken. That is a ratio of 44-1. For every 45 enemy soldiers that the American forces came up against, 44 of them were killed in action and 1 was taken prisoner. The 77th Infantry Division, on the other hand, only managed to take 358 POWs, with a ratio of 122-1. And it gets way worse if you want to talk about the Battle of Okinawa in particular.
Wow.
During the Battle of Okinawa, all of the US forces combined took a total of 10,801 Japanese prisoners of war. That is a 10-1 ratio.
Okay.
Of those 10,801 POWs taken by the US forces at the Battle of Okinawa, the 77th ID was responsible for 58 of them at a ratio of 278-1 compared to the U.S. Armed Forces ratio of 10-1. Okay. Completely honest, I have no idea why it's like that. Perhaps it's because the old bastards displayed exceptional rifle marksmanship. Maybe it's the fact that they took the warfare lesson of if they don't stink, stick them to heart, and they followed through with that throughout the entire war. Either way, the fact of the matter is they've developed the reputation that they don't really take prisoners, and now there's 5,500 Japanese soldiers hiding up in the mountains.
Okay. That makes fucking perfect sense. Like, even no matter what happened, no matter what the reason was, what they were just good at shooting, whether they were just extra careful, I would also not want to surrender to them. Like, that would be terrifying if you know that these people don't take prisoners. I get it. It makes sense. All right. Fair play.
The 77th ID, and they need them to surrender so that they can finally go home and mow their lawn after like 4 years.
You always start before everyone wakes up, including roosters.
What the? Hey, shut up!
You shut up!
So the leadership of the 77th sends it up the chain of command, hey, you're going to have to get some other unit out here to accept this surrender because they're willing to surrender to anybody except for us. To which the big army is like, just fucking figure it out. No, I'm not sending another group of guys out there. Get them to surrender one way or the other, make it happen, chop chop, hurry up. Now, the obvious answer is to just practice classic American diplomacy where you show up with a gun and a sandwich and ask them which one they would prefer and let them know that both is an option. The old bastards, on the other hand, have an even better idea. They are going to close this saga
big
out
brain.
the same way they opened it up, by pulling some schoolyard bullshit and
Okay.
A lot of the new reinforcements that they were getting weren't old guys anymore. It was just whoever the army had. So it was 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. So they took them, had them take the blue Statue of Liberty 77th ID patches off their uniform, and they're going to send them up the mountain, have the Japanese surrender to them, separate them from their guns right there, and march them down the mountain. So that's exactly what...
And then tricked you. It was us the whole time.
happens. They start marching the Japanese down the mountain. Japanese are happy because they've gotten to surrender to literally anybody except the old guys with the blue
Losers.
patch on their shoulder.
Oh
And
no.
then they get to the bottom of the mountain where there's a bunch of old guys with the Statue of Liberty patch on their shoulder. So the
Hello.
Japanese promptly shit their pants thinking that they're all about to die, at which point the 77th is like, look, calm down. We don't care. We're not going to hurt you. I just need you guys to get on the boats so we can ship you off to wherever the army wants you so that we can then get on our boats and we can go home because we're sick of this shit. And that's what happens. That's it. The 77th goes back home, the unit gets deactivated, and everybody lives happily ever after. So in conclusion, that is the story of the 77th Infantry Division, aka the Old Bastards. A bunch of middle-aged men originally seen as nothing more than a bunch of guinea pigs whose only meaningful contribution to the war effort could be to collect data points and run experiments on, that would somehow go on to become one of the most effective fighting forces the world had ever seen. They saw combat in the Pacific Theater for 11 months, and during that time they would lose 1,100 men, but for every old bastard that fell on the battlefield, he would take with him 22 enemies.
Oh my god.
Credited with 43,651 confirmed kills during this time.
Wow.
They were the busiest army division in the Pacific Theater, and they were the only army division that was declared to be Marines by the Marine Corps. For this, the members of the 77th were awarded 6 Medals of Honor, 19 Distinguished Service Crosses, 2 Distinguished Service Medals, 335 Silver Stars, 22 Legions of Merit, 25 Soldier Medals, 4,433 Bronze Stars.
Oh my god.
Distinguished Unit Citation.
Wow. Holy shit. That's absolutely crazy. That's crazy. Good job, old timers, man. Wow. I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at the
Do it. Support this channel. Out.
Seriously, this is one of the best stories and one of the funnest things that I've ever got to research. That being said, for some reason, once I found out that pretty much all these guys were from the East Coast, the only thing I could picture in my head was that all 15,000 of these dudes were rich high. You know, angry cops here from YouTube. It's one of the most terrifying thoughts I've ever had in my entire life. Just 15,000 angry drill sergeants storming up the beach.
Amazing. Honestly, you know, East Coast, yeah, like I said, fucking East Coast represent. We're a different breed. And yes, I live in Chicago now, but I still get people getting mad at me because I pull East Coast bullshit, apparently. By which I mean, I'm just gonna be freaking straight with you. I'll tell you like it is. Like, I've always been pretty blunt, has been something that has been used to describe me. It's like, you know, it's like we don't take no mess. It's like, it does get me in trouble a lot in the Midwest, though, because I will give you back exactly what you give me. So whatever energy I am getting from you, I'm going to just become a mirror and reflect it back at you. And that doesn't bode well with a lot of Midwesterners who just expect everyone to be nice, even when they're being an asshole. Anyway, good job, 77th. I mean, well done, boys. And again, if you want me to watch Hacksaw Ridge, it's been a while since I've done a movie type thing. I've never actually broken one of them down. So I'm willing to do it. I am. So if you want to see me do that, I will. I'll almost certainly cry. Like I said, I've done Saving Private Ryan before. And I was in tears for 80% of that movie. Like, I was so excited to get started. Like, I had my popcorn and everything. People were mad at me about the popcorn thing, but I didn't realize just, like, I don't know. Like, I didn't realize that I was going to care so much about the people. I was like, it's a movie. It's not real. I was like, I was going into it in that sort of mentality, which I shouldn't have done. Again, like I said, I had been doing these sort of videos for like a month, maybe. Like, it was the first one I ever did. I'd been doing it for May, and then I did that at the end of May kind of thing. So, like, it was brand new. I don't think I'd seen any of, like, the Fat Electrician stuff. Like, I don't know. Anyway. Whew. These are long. That's what I said. Like, I look at these 40-minute videos, and I'm like, okay, I'll be here for over an hour. And here we are. I'm at 103. So that's the only that's a major reason I haven't done a long one in a while, because I was like, I'm going to be sitting here for a minute. But I do hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed learning about it. I know I went on a few little rants. I get in trouble for them sometimes, so sorry if you were offended by it. But, you know, it's It is what it is. And again, like I said, I have a lot of respect for people who went through that and who were like able to do it. I would not be able to make it through basic training. I know this for a fact about myself. So there's that. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what I should react to next. And don't forget to, like and subscribe. Go get some Fat Electrician merch. We have shot glasses. You want to support the channel, you can buy our shot glasses. That also helps. That's links for those will be somewhere in the description box below as well. Yeah, that's going to be it for me. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.